Hello, everyone. I am Millie from E27. Thank you for joining us today in this very interesting session on how we can improve our lives while working from home. And I'm certain that everybody is facing a lot of challenges like I have, even if it comes to the way we're sitting, the kind of desk we're using, and we're missing a lot of things about the office. I'm just going to give you a little brief about how we will go about today's session. We have with us today Yuying Deng of Esevel. What's interesting about her story is that she actually started her startup during the circuit breaker, right in the middle of the pandemic. And, and she's working on how we can accelerate the trend of remote working, which she and I both believe that it's here to stay. And as we can all see this trend going on, there's no denying that 2021 will still quite be at least partially remote or fully remote for a lot of us. While her passion lies in empowering people to work from anywhere and achieve their best possible results, she's going to tell us a little more about how she does this. But before we jump on to hearing what she has to say and all the tips that she has to share, I want to hear from everyone. What has been your experience of working remotely so far? What are the challenges that you face? The kinds of problems that you've encountered? What are you missing most about Office? This meeting is intentionally set up to be a meeting and an open format webinar versus a webinar format. So feel free to keep your videos on, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand, and we will help you unmute yourself to share your views, to share your challenges. We'll take about the first 10-15 minutes to discuss what we've all been going through, what we've all not liked or liked about the remote working experience. And then we'll hear Yuying on what are these different aspects that we should be aware about when it comes to remote work or working from home. And what are the things that we can change to help make ourselves more productive, to make our environment more work-friendly. And after that, we have a very interesting live exercise that I encourage everybody to participate in. We'll probably go on to the videos of a couple of our participants. We can see how your workspace is designed, and you can live tell you what is it that works for you in here, what is it that you can change, how can you make it a little more ergonomic so that it supports you better when you're working at your desk and no matter how the desk is. So feel free to participate in that live experience as well. But before that, I think I'm happy to listen to any of your views, and just raise your hand and let us know that you want to share your experience of working remotely. Personally, for me, I've been working remotely for about a year plus now. And while I enjoy, I mean, of course, I enjoy the flexibility. I enjoy that I don't have to wake up and dress up to go somewhere. I also think that there are considerable drawbacks. Not seeing my team and not meeting them in person is one of those, which I was looking very much to doing in 2020, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And the other aspect is just working all the noise and the chaos around me. I mean, I live in India. It's perpetually noisy, no matter what kind of spot do I find. While I was still going to consider going to a co-working, and just when I started doing that in the beginning of the year, I spent about a couple of weeks going there and just settling in, and then things suddenly changed. Had to come back home and work from home again. So at home, I really never had this designated workspace. So there were times when I would work out of my dining table. There were times when I would just sit on the couch, sometimes just on the floor and look at my balcony or the garden, the plants, and look at that and do something. So I think one of the things that I miss was having this designated space. The other thing was I didn't know what was the right posture because I sat in so many different places all over the house. Sometimes I was slouching, sometimes I was sleeping on my back while still working on my laptop. So I think these were some of these drawbacks that I was not so happy with. Obviously, I did have some physical pains and aches. Thankfully for me, the yoga that I was practicing kind of helped ease that down. But I'm sure a lot of you have encountered some of these challenges and would love to hear some of your experiences. I think, yes, Anissa wants to share hers. She's already volunteering to share her workspace live with Yuying. Meanwhile, anybody has any thoughts on how their remote working experience has been so far? Is that something you've done before? Or, do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you waiting to go back? I'll probably wait for a few more minutes if any of you want to share how your experience has been or any particular challenges and difficulties that you all have faced in doing this remote work stint that we all had to forcefully become a part of. Anybody from E27 would probably like to share their experience so that we can get the conversation going. I'm sure everybody has had their own challenges in their own way, depending on where you are located.
Mili, hi. This is Sanjay. I'm from Intel, and very similar to you, I've been working from home maybe since March timeframe, so close to 9 months. And Yuying and I have spoken a little bit previously as well, though she didn't get to see my workspace, but we have spoken and explained to her how it it maybe looks like. So the good part is, yeah, as you said, you don't have to wake up early, you don't have to commute. I think that's a huge time saver. An hour commute in the morning, in the afternoon, evenings. So that's a huge time save. Um, the aspect about which you mentioned about not meeting with people, yes, that definitely is a drawback. But with the virtual space and with some of the things opening up, I feel even that is now easing out. So I'm kind of personally enjoying this a lot, and I would like to continue on with it as much as possible. Also, in terms of how will it change in the future, I preferably, if given a choice, I would maybe go to office once a week, and the rest of the time, I feel I'm a lot more productive at home and able to contribute more working from home.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think that was an interesting take, right? Like we want this, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I kind of concur with you on that. I would want to go to a workspace or even a co-working for at least once or twice in a week to get my dose of social interaction, meet new people in person, feel that camaraderie, and then still come back to my shell, do my thing, and get comfortable. And I mean, yeah, I personally kind of work better this way, so it sort of works for me too. Does anybody else? Bo, yes, Bo, that's really sorry to hear the construction work. I've kind of struggled with that too. There's an entire building being constructed right next to where I live. And I mean, I wake up to that, so it's supremely annoying. And throughout the day, I kind of have to keep the windows closed so that I avoid all the noise. So, Bo, my heart goes out to you. I can feel what you're feeling. Anisa says I actually enjoyed work from home before the pandemic, but what we have now can feel a bit suffocating since our movement is limited. Yes, I think what we're all missing most is just the ability to go out and meet people and just sort of hug them or even have the little physical contact that we had earlier. And I think one of the things with the work from home experience is because it's so forced. I mean, earlier was choice. I mean, we all said, oh, okay, I have a flexible office situation. I'm going to just enjoy that perk. And now since it's become a little bit of a forced diktat on all of us, we probably don't enjoy it as much, as said, very well said by Anisa. Anybody else, any unique problems, anything that you came up with, or did anybody develop any kind of physical or mental health issue or something that they were struggling with for the past few months? I'm guessing that we all took a few months in the beginning to just adapt. So from March to July, perhaps, and then some of the challenges might have surfaced. At least in my experience, I realized that stress management or just trying to keep calm was one of the bigger problems because at home I was surrounded by multiple things at the same time. And my mother expecting something out of me, and then something at work, or even just this little basic etiquette of when to be quiet or not, because there are so many people sharing the same space. So just managing the calmness and just being centered was a challenge. And we did a couple of meditation webinars where we had Beyond Lee just come and share how you could do shorter 1 minute and 10-minute meditations through the day while you're just sitting at your desk. So did anybody have any particular experiences with that or any physical ailments that they may have developed apart from the virus, of course? And I hope none of you had to go through that. Does anybody want to share anything about that? We'll probably spend another few minutes to hear something from you. Does he anything on the chat yet? Sure, I'll probably let all of you ponder on this a bit. And in the meanwhile, we'll start listening to what Yuying has to share with us. I'll probably nudge Yuying to share a little bit about her story, what led her to starting this very unique concept and something that we're going to see more of in the next year. And then also, of course, everything that she wants to share with us and educate us on about the work from home concept, how it's evolving, what we should keep in mind. So the floor is yours, Yuying.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to share my screen, so let me know if you don't see it. Okay, you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, all right. Hi everybody, my name is Yuying. I'm the founder of Esevel and the CEO as well. Today I'm going to share with you on the topic how you can set up your home office for maximum productivity, because I'm sure this is the situation that most of us are in right now. So just a bit about myself. I've been in the corporate real estate ergonomic space for the past 6 years, and I'm also a mother of 3 kids. So, young kids. So I've always enjoyed those days when I managed to work from home because I could just see them, that much more during the day. So when COVID actually struck in about February, I started to look to see how the landscape would change. And I felt that I wasn't the only one who's going to be feeling this way. And, so at that point in time, I set up Esevel so that we can actually help other people to work from home effectively. So let me just go through with you. I'll be sharing not just about ergonomics, but also about the legal landscape as well. So I don't profess this to be legal advice. I'm a lawyer by training. However, what I'm sharing here is Singapore law. So, I wouldn't profess this to be legal advice by any means. But let's go through this presentation. So this is about us. We are Esevel. We are end-to-end remote work platform. We help companies actually simplify the management of a dispersed workforce. We take care of only 3 things: remote employees' safety, health, and their productivity needs. So I'm sure that most of you are aware of this. 68% of employees actually say that they work successfully from home. And I'm sure many of you are in that position right now. You feel that you may work from home effectively because you can do more deep dive and more focused work away from the hustle and bustle of the office. But certain kind of tasks you may feel would be better performed at the office itself. And 70% of team leaders actually say work from home is the same or better for their team's work performance. So over here on the slide, you can see that both employees enjoy working from home and leaders say that it actually doesn't affect their productivity. But there are also different health and safety risks when we work from home as well. So of course, we have those kind of risks such as untidy cables on the floor, overloaded power strips. But in addition to that, our home setups and our office setups are very different. So in the office, we have people who take care of our work surroundings. So we have ergonomic chairs, we have ergonomic desks, even sit-stand desks that are available. And there are people who go around and make sure that everything is set up properly and functioning properly. But we may not have these things while we're at home because previously we may not actually have spent a lot of time working from home. So this very interesting study came out in the US when 92% of chiropractors actually said that their patients reported more neck pain, back pain, and MSD, musculoskeletal issues, since the stay-at-home guidance began. So this is very interesting that 92% of chiropractors actually said this. So here's a reality check. Are you set up to work from home, or is your ironing board actually your height adjustable standing desk? So the first thing to understand is what actually happens when a person is not set up to work from home. So there are 3 possibilities here. The first is that injuries could happen. So you could have sprains, you could strain yourself, you could slip, trips, and falls. All these are very common causes of injuries. And we have actually seen these happen in court cases that are actually brought overseas in the US and in Europe against the employers. The second thing that could obviously happen is musculoskeletal pains. So improper posture and prolonged sitting actually places 90% more pressure on your spine. So over time, this could lead to injuries. And of course, when you have injuries and musculoskeletal pains, it results in a drop in productivity, which is not beneficial either to the employee or to the employers themselves. So this is something very interesting here, which I think that many people here in Singapore and in Asia are actually not aware of. Employers are actually responsible for providing employees with a safe work environment. This is very obvious in the office, and employers are very well aware of that within their office environment as well. However, they're not. We are transitioning to an environment where many people are working remotely, and therefore everyone is also transitioning their knowledge in accordance with this. So it is both a common law and a statutory duties that employers are supposed to provide a safe work environment for employees and not to put them in harm's way. So in Singapore over here, this falls under two different components. One is under common law, where it's an implied term of the employment between the employer and employee that they're supposed to take care of the employees. And in Singapore, it also falls under three different statutes here. So we have the Workplace Safety and Health Act, the Work Injury Compensation Act, and the guidelines, various guidelines set up by the Workplace Safety and Health Council here in Singapore. So what do the statutes actually say? They actually explain out what the duty of care is. So under the WSHA, which is the Workplace Safety and Health Act, employers actually have a broad responsibility to take reasonably practicable measures to ensure the safety and health of persons at the workplace. They also have to proactively identify and mitigate risk and hazards at the workplace as well. So it is very clear if you're working in a factory or if you're working in an office, what your employers have to do. And many employers actually already perform that duty. However, when we transition to a remote workplace, it is also very important to understand that workplace is actually defined very broadly. It means any premises that your employee works, including if they're working remotely at home. So workplace over here actually does cover the home office as well. So I'm aware that many of you listening in are actually founders of startups or startup employees, and you may be interested to know what this actually means for startups. So what we should note is that the statute does not distinguish based on company size. So whether you have a company of thousands of employees or whether you have a company just of 2 or 3 people, every company owes the same duty of care to their employees. However, the key over here is to recognize what is actually meant by the term reasonably practicable. Because what's reasonably practicable for a startup or for a small medium enterprise is very different from what is reasonably practicable for an MNC. So for instance, if your employee is sitting at home with only a fan and is no air conditioning and is suffering from the heat, it's not reasonably practicable to expect a startup to implement air conditioning for them. However, if your employee doesn't even have a chair in their home to sit on, would it be reasonably practicable to expect a startup to actually provide a chair for their employees to sit on? So this is a test that has to be implemented at each stage. So we have actually co-written 18-page white paper with Raja and Tan, which is a law firm over here in Singapore. There's a QR code over there for you to download the white paper and have a read through to have a better understanding of what the duty of care is here in Singapore. So now moving on from the legal aspects of it, we're also going to look at what the general rules are for good ergonomics in a home office. So the very first thing that I always like to start with is lighting. So lighting is actually so important because having bad lighting, dim lighting, or overly bright lighting in your home actually would lead to headaches. It could lead to eye strain when you're actually trying to do your work. For me, at least, I find that it's one of the things that affects me the most. So in terms of lighting, what we advise is actually to avoid bright background lights. So if you are actually sitting with your desk facing the windows can actually create glare onto your computer screen. I'm sure most of us are using computer nowadays. So this could create tiredness in your eyes after a prolonged period of time. So I would actually advise you, if you have a window with a bright source of light, to place your screen perpendicular to it, so at 90 degrees, so that the light doesn't reflect onto the screen. Also, if you have overhead lights and your overhead lights are very bright, I will also advise you to sit away from those lighting as well. So you may then ask, but what if I'm doing paperwork on the side? How do I actually get lighting onto that? So that's where task lighting may come in, so that you can actually redirect the light onto the work that you're doing yourself. And given that most of us are actually working on screens nowadays, you could follow a 20-20-20 rule. So this is actually something that's really easy to remember. It basically means that for every 20 minutes of looking at your screen, you look at something about 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So that's a very easy rule to remember, and it will prevent your eyes from becoming overly tired. Another thing that we often see when we go to our clients' home as well is that their screens are often not set at the right height for themselves. So whether you're using a laptop or whether you're using a monitor screen, when you adjust the screen for yourself, you should always make sure that the top of screen is at or slightly below your eye level. So how do you do that? If you're using a monitor, take a look at the monitor stand. Many monitor stands nowadays are actually adjustable, so you could just adjust it based on the stand itself. However, if you have a monitor that has a stand which is not adjustable, a very cheap and easy solution is just to stack it on A4 paper. And that way you can actually bring it up to the right height for yourself. Laptops are a different kettle of fish, so we're going to deal with that later. And whether you're using a laptop or whether you're using a monitor screen, you should always make sure that your screens are about 1 arm's length away from yourself with your fisted. Right. And the third thing that we look at, and this is something that I always advise a lot of my clients to go out and get as well, is just to get an external keyboard and mouse. So I know that many of us sitting at home, we're actually using a laptop. However, laptops, as we go into in a bit more detail later, they are inherently very unergonomic device because the screen is hinged to the keyboard itself. So this either means that the screen is too low for you and the keyboard is at the right height, or the keyboard's too high for you and the screen is at the right height. So there is very little way that you can strike a balance between that. So one of the good solutions is just to get an external keyboard and mouse so that you can keep the keyboard and mouse at the right height for yourself while elevating the screen. If you always use the mouse with your right hand, try to alternate with your left hand as well to avoid more pressure on your wrist. And then chairs is something that a lot of our clients, get confused about. And this one I understand because there are just so many terminologies related to chairs out there that it's very hard to know actually what you need. So for us, we always advise them that at a basic level, a good chair should be something that is stable, that has an adjustable height in terms of the chair's height, adjustable armrest, and adjustable backrest. So that when you actually sit on the chair, you can lower or raise the chair's height such that your thighs are parallel with the ground and your feet is flat. So if you're someone like me, I'm a bit shorter, you may ask, I can never adjust my chair such that my feet is actually flat on the ground and my feet is always raised. So what do you do in this kind of situation? So what you could do, and which is what I do as well, is I get a footrest for myself so that I can actually adjust my chair to the right height for my desk such that my elbows are at about 90 degrees angle and my foot is still flat when I place it on the footrest. So this is to make sure that your feet can actually get support. We also advise you to look at a chair where the armrest can be adjusted so that your arms can actually rest on the armrest when you're sitting down. And another thing which better chairs have as well is adjustable seat pans. So if you are sitting on a chair right now, what you can do is you try to move to the back of your chair, right? So that your lower back is supported by the backrest, and try to see whether there's at least a 5 cm clearance between your seat pan and the back of your knees. So if it's less than that, meaning that there's too much clearance, your thighs may actually not be supported sufficiently. If it's actually more than that, meaning that your knees are pressed back against your seat when your back is against the seat rest, it may mean that you may get undue pressure on the back of your knees. So, if this is the case, you may look at getting a lumbar support cushion, for instance. And if you have a chair that has an adjustable backrest, I would advise you to unlock it so you can promote movement in the upper part of your body. All right. And desk is another important thing that a lot of people do not notice. So one of the things that we see a lot of our clients have is that they have these pedestals under the desk. And the way that the pedestals are placed is such that there is actually very little space for their legs to move. So, they are often contorted, seated in a specific position for a very long period of time, which is not good for their bodies. So we advise you to clear the underneath of your desk so that you can have clearance for your legs to move around. And if you have the budget for it, we would also ask that you consider sit-stand desks as well. So this is one of the things about remote work, which is not so good, because you don't have your public commutes throughout the day. You don't go out for lunches with your friends, and you don't have, those frequent long trips to the toilets. So that means that you are less active throughout the day. So a sit-stand desk is an easy way for you to get some activity into your day. All right, and then moving on to the next part. So this is the special case of using laptops that I mentioned. If you use your laptop frequently, we actually advise that you elevate your laptop. You can either use a laptop riser for this, which is what you see in the top photograph, together with an external keyboard or mouse, or you could even use a second screen, such as the monitor screen that you see below. So if you're getting a monitor screen, we would advise you to get something at least 23 inches and above so that it's sufficient for your eyes to look at. And of course, if you have a small laptop and you're using that as your primary computing device, you may actually want to look at upgrading the screen size. And what do you do in the situation if you actually bring your laptop out to a cafe? So this one we'll show it in a demo later, but basically what you should always do in such a case is to make sure that your lower back is supported and that you actually prop your laptop up to bring it as close to your eye level as possible. So we'll do that in a demo, which you'll see in a while. And of course, this is what I do myself. I work from the sofa, I work from my bed, I work from the coffee table. So there are various tips and tricks that you can actually use in order to improve your ergonomics when working from such a position. So we also show you that in the demo later. But one important thing to note is that because your sofas and your beds tend to be so comfortable, you tend not to move as much. So this is something that you should always be aware of. If you're sitting on the sofa, if you're sitting on a bed and working, you should always get up and move around like every 20 to 30 minutes or so. And here are some aids, which are really not too expensive, that you can use while you're working from home. So one is a lap desk. You can easily get this off any e-commerce websites like Lazada or Amazon. They're not too expensive. So you can use this while you're working on the sofa or whether you're working on the bed. And the side table is actually one of my personal favorites. I'm using one of them right now. So you can actually use the side table to put your laptop on while you're seated on your sofa and working. And these are really not too expensive too. So Esevel, we are a remote work platform. We can help you upgrade your work from home experience. We provide packages from just $38 per month. That's our domain below. So these are just some of the products that we actually provide. So it ranges from complete home office sets. For example, you can get a sit-stand desk and a chair from our platform from just $79 per month, to ergonomic accessories and also services like workplace assessments and ergonomic assessments. So here are just some of the benefits that you can enjoy with us. I think the most important thing actually is that you have peace of mind when you're getting products in through us, because we provide only enterprise grade products with industry certifications. And here's a discount code, which I think that Millie would send out later. So you can get this discount code just by applying through our website. All right, thank you very much for your attention. I think that the next part will probably be a demo.
Thank you, Yuying. I think there were a lot of things in your presentation that I probably personally have never even thought about before. So it's very eye-opening for me. Even the small tips and tricks that you shared about just screen levels and the smaller tools that we could use. And I'm hoping it's been equally productive for everybody. We do have a couple of questions that have already come in. So do you want to take those first and then jam? Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
First one's from Anisa, and she's asking, what are your thoughts on makeshift standing desks? Is there any way to use them safely?
Yes, definitely. I think that using a makeshift standing desk is a great idea, especially if you're thinking about getting one, because a standing desk is not, it's an investment to make. So one of the ways that you can get started with it quite quickly is that if you have a kitchen countertop, for instance, which is about at your waist height, you could just bring your laptop onto it, elevate it with like A4 paper so that the screen is slightly below your eye level. Use an external keyboard or mouse and just try standing, for like 20 minutes, half an hour or so. But the key to using a makeshift standing desk is always to make sure that you have a place to go to sit, right? Because it is just as bad to stand for too long as it is to sit for too long. Right. So if you want to do a makeshift standing desk at your table, it's possible to do so with boxes as well. So the key then is always to make sure that your laptop and your keyboards are actually separated. So you can have your keyboard at a proper height for yourself, which is always when your elbows are about 90 degrees angle, and your laptop screen is at or around your eye level. So just make sure that those two are separated for you.
Thanks. I think that does make a lot of sense now that I imagine it. Okay, there's another one from Daryl which says, I have a $12 foldable chair from IKEA, which is wrecking my posture and causing my shoulders to shrug forward. A friend suggested sitting on an inflated exercise ball instead, which would work on core and stability. Is this recommended?
So there are various kind of thoughts about that. I mean, I think within the industry itself, this is a matter of dispute. So there are people going for it and people against it as well. So obviously the thing with sitting on balance ball, what's good for it is that you're exercising your core muscles, right? So, you know, over time, this is supposed to be good for you. But is it a good idea to exercise your core, to have to exercise your core muscles all of the time, right? And also you couple that this kind of a lack of stability that the balance ball tends to give you. So yeah, I mean, this is a matter of dispute, like within the ergonomics industry itself. So I wouldn't comment too much on that.
Well, I kind of had the same.
Some of the time it is okay, but if you're relying on that as your main seat for the entire day, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like alternating with it, with like how you do. Because I had the same thought about a rotating chair. And with me, what happens is I find it very distracting. So even if I'm on a chair that rotates, so I kind of like, when I'm taking breaks or when I'm thinking, I just kind of like try to spin around. And sometimes it's too much. And I can't help it. So I don't know if actually a rotating chair is fair.
Yeah. I mean, if you an ergonomist, right, what is the best posture for you? They will always say your best posture is your next posture, you know, which brings to mind that actually the most important thing for you throughout your day is not what kind of posture you adopt at any, you know, minute of time, right? But it's actually being active throughout your day. So you could be in this posture this time, this posture next, but the thing is not to hold one posture in a static way for too long.
Right. I think so. That's the key to getting the ergonomics right. It's the dynamic. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
A last one from Daryl, and then move on to the demonstration, which I'm very excited to see. Any recommendations for home Wi-Fi? I live in a small HDB in Singapore, but cannot understand why the connection to various devices is weak or intermittent.
Sorry, Millie, I couldn't catch you there. It broke up a bit.
Sorry, it's about any recommendations for home Wi-Fi?
For Chrome Wi-Fi.
Home Wi-Fi.
I mean, I'm not a home Wi-Fi's, right? So I'm not a Wi-Fi expert. We have a partner that deals with that. But from personal experience, I think what has worked quite well for me is the Google Home Wi-Fi has worked quite well. In fact, I live in a kind of duplex. So, you know, it actually has transmitted, we have tried many different Wi-Fi solutions, and so far this is the only one that actually, you know, could transmit upstairs and through bedroom doors and all that.
Okay, cool. I think probably they can also check the other things that Esevel has, and then obviously use the discount code, which we will send out separately. Moving on, let's get on with the demonstration and what we have to show.
Sure. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate two positions right now. So let me know if this is clear. You should be able to see the sofa, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the positions that I'm going to demonstrate is a very favorite one of mine. So this is basically what I do when I work from my bed or when I work from my sofa. So if you're working using your laptop, you'll find that it actually makes a huge difference if you actually have something below your knees, so that you can feel that your knees are supported and that your thighs are actually elevated. And what's important to also note is that you need to have a lower backrest as well to make sure that your lower back is supported. So when you use your laptop, make sure that when you open it, that your screen is actually at an angle. So if this is not high enough for you, you can actually use a ring binder to elevate it. And the added benefit of having a ring binder is that it helps your laptop to cool down as well. So you could be working this way, right? Making sure that there's something below your knees and something to support your back. So you can imagine if this is a bed, this will be the headrest of the bed instead, and your feet, you would stretch out the length of the bed. Or if it's a sofa, you know, it's the same thing. So the second one that I want to demonstrate is when you actually work from your sofa. So this would be, I would say, any kind of seat which is deep. So for an ordinary chair, if you're sitting on an office chair, you generally don't have to sit too deep in for your back to touch the backrest. However, if you're sitting on a sofa, you want to make sure that your lower back is supported. So for me over here, I actually need 2 cushions to make sure that my lower back is supported. And then what I'll do is that, you can't see this, but I actually have a shoebox underneath here, which I will use to elevate my feet, right? So that my legs are actually slightly elevated. And then I would use my laptop in this way. If it's too low, I would actually place it again on the ring binder and work in this way, all right? So these are the 2 postures. But whichever posture you use, it is always very important to make sure that you don't stay in this posture for too long, right? Because your bed, your sofas, they're just going to be so comfortable that you want to stay there in this posture for a very long period of time. And that's generally not recommended.
Thanks. I think there were very interesting hacks to doing this. So I had a challenge. So when I'm working on the sofa, I tend to extend my legs out on the coffee table. And the height, I would say the coffee table is slightly a little higher than the seat of the sofa, because obviously it goes in and it's a bit more comfortable. So I kind of sense that my knees could be a little at an angle, like a little slightly tilted. But I see what you recommended was just to sort of be in a chair-like position, like with right angle with your knees on the floor, right? Is that
correct?
Okay. Now I see that I was doing that completely wrong.
Yeah, you can try that. I mean, the thing with putting your feet on the coffee table, I guess, is that your coffee table is quite hard, right? I mean, it's probably glass or wood. So if you rest your feet there for too long, I don't think it's very good for your circulation as well. So, but it's okay. Like any posture is okay, as long as you don't maintain it for too long. So like 20 minutes, half an hour, it's fine. And then always switch to another posture after that.
There's another question with Anissa says, how about sitting on the floor? Are there any ways to do it safely or?
Yes. So I don't have the right setup to demo it right now. However, if you look at the slide that I had, there is actually a picture of a lady with a coffee table where she was sitting on the floor. So the important thing about making sure when you're seated on the floor, actually in any position, is to make sure that you support your lower back. And then also to make sure that your screen is at the right level for your eyes as well. And when you make sure that your screen is at the right level for your eyes, very often this may mean that your wrists are elevated when you're trying to type on the screen. So you should always make sure that that's not the case by either using an external keyboard or rejigging the posture such that you don't need to elevate your wrist too much.
Right. Yeah, I think I remember the picture where she was sitting on a floor cushion and then.
Yes. So one really good hack for sitting on the floor with the coffee table is to get, one of those IKEA stools, like a wicker stool, where you can sit down, not exactly sitting cross-legged, right? It's a very low stool, but the stool actually forces you to keep your back upright. Because the thing with sitting on the floor is that very often you sit cross-legged and you tend to slouch over. So sitting on this kind of wicker basket or like a small stool actually keeps your posture a bit more upright than otherwise.
So then a good way to also do it is sit on the floor with like a back support, either against the wall or like the frame of your bed.
Or against your sofa.
Or against on the floor. I mean, so that your lower back is supported and the screen is at eye level. I think these are the 2 keys.
Yes, that's right.
I think these have been a good series of tips, and probably we can start moving into as the questions keep coming in. So we're open to taking questions, but I think we should also do a few more of these live demonstrations. Anissa, I know, volunteered, so we can start with her workspace. And meanwhile, if anybody else wants to open up their workspace, put on their video and share it with Yuying, and let's have a live take on what she thinks you can change or move around. So I'll leave you to Anissa now.
Hi, Anissa.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to show you. So there are actually 3 settings that I'm using to work. So So this is the desk that I'm using. So it's like sometimes when I feel like working standing up, I use these boxes and then I put my laptop here so I can just like have direct access on it. And then if I'm using my desk, then I'm just going to move it a little bit to the back.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I understand my chair is not ideal because yeah, this is, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's this. Yeah, it's kind of what I have from because it's like a furnished apartment and it's coming with the apartment, so that's what I have.
Okay.
And occasionally, like what I'm doing right now is that I tend to sit on the floor. So what happened is that I'm using the chair to place my laptop. Then I'm going to use some pillows to support me to sit on. So
okay. I can't see you actually sitting on the floor. So you're sitting cross-legged on the floor right now?
Yeah, and I'm using like some kind of a pillow to support. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So looking at your setup, I think it's quite cool that you actually, managed to jig together a standing desk and a sitting desk as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the key is that I think the first thing is whether by piling the boxes together, is it stable enough for your laptop?
Yeah, it's actually stable enough. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but it's quite, it's quite strong.
Okay, all right. So I think that's good for like short periods of time, like when you stand and you actually do that. Because the thing is that when you stand and you use your laptop, if you notice, you would see that your laptop is actually lower than where it should be. So it wouldn't be exactly at your eye level, right? Unless you're using an external keyboard. So I think it's okay for short periods as long as you're not standing for too long. And then you go back to sitting. So you might want to do a ratio of like, 1/3 to 2/3 of standing to sitting. So like maybe, like 20 minutes of standing and then 40 minutes of sitting and so on with some activities in between. So I think in that kind of situation, it worked okay. Another thing that you could think of doing is that if you actually have more boxes, you could elevate your laptop so that it's at your eye level and then just get an external keyboard or mouse to use it on top of elevated boxes as well at your elbow level when you're standing. Right. I'm not sure whether you can visualize that. So it's basically to keep your screen at your eye level and the keyboard and mouse at your wrist level when you're actually standing. So if that's the case, you can actually stand for longer. All right. And then going to your sitting position, I think it's quite cool that you can actually push everything away and then like sit down after that. But in terms of the stool, I don't think it's great for like sitting for long periods of time.
Yeah.
So I have the same stool at home as well from IKEA. And it's the seat pan is not very big, so I'm sure it's not very comfortable when you sit on it. So you may want to consider just getting one of those kind of like chairs that they have from IKEA as well, where they actually have a backrest for you. So I think that, as long as you can get something with a bit of like support for your lower back, you feel a lot more comfortable when you're sitting. And it's actually sturdier as well, so it's safer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then sitting, I really can't see like where your laptop is positioned and so on. So, but as long, if this is your sitting position for your laptop, then I think it's fine because I can see your face almost at like eye level for myself.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks so much for sharing your space with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Anissa, and thank you for letting us into your workspace. We have a quick question from Daryl. It's interesting. It's a little bit about what Esevel does. So that I had a quick visit to Esevel's website and downloaded the white paper and saw that there are office solutions on a subscription basis.
Yep.
What is the reason for this pricing model, and is there an option for full purchase instead?
Yes, there's an option for full purchase. So if you look at any one of our products, we have a subscription price which changes according to the different subscription lengths. And then there's also a purchase price as well. So a lot of our clients, they either subscribe for 1 or 2 months and they find out that they love the product. They just pay the remainder, which is basically the retail price minus the subscription price, and they own the product. Or some of them they just purchase it outright.
And I think it's a good follow-up, and I think this is something we've spoken about before because Yuying also works with a lot of corporates. So how can we convince our bosses or company to take care of the Esevel home office solution instead of the employee actually footing the bill?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is awareness. I think that, you know, here in Asia, there's still a bit of a lack of awareness as to what employers are actually responsible for. Because to be fair, this is a situation that a lot of us didn't expect to find ourselves in, you know, employers included. Like all of a sudden you have 80 to 90% of your employees working from home. So everyone is still coming to grips with like, what exactly is our responsibility? You know, what does the law say? What does the government expect me to do? So what we have, you know, discovered from our white paper, Raja and Tan, is that the duty of care is actually laid down very clearly in the law. So I think one of the things is to make sure that your HR is aware that there is such a duty of care in the first place. So in answer to Daryl's question, he can actually just send a white paper across to his HR so that they know what the duty of care is to their employees.
Thanks, Yuying. And I think recently you also did a very interesting contributed piece on E27, talking more about the duty of care and 4 or 5 things that the employers need to be aware of. So you can check that out too. Sanjay has a question about sitting at a high counter with a bar, stool, or chair. So any thoughts on how to optimize this space?
High countertop with a bar stool or chair. Yeah, so I think that will depend on, I mean, one of the good things about a high countertop is definitely that you can stand there as well as sit over there. So if, you know, Sanjay, you have like such an environment, I think it's good to like alternate between sitting and standing, just using that. The thing with the chairs for high countertops though, I'm not sure how stable the chairs are. So one of the things that I've noticed about these kind of chairs is that they tend to be a bit unstable. So you just have to make sure that when you sit on this chair, that's actually stable and that the chair actually gives you proper support for your feet. Because a lot of these chairs, what I've noticed is that they actually have rims on the bottom part of it. And when you actually rest your feet on that, you know, over a prolonged period of time, that's not ergonomic and that's not comfortable as well because your feet are actually positioned inwards. So I think a lot of it probably depends on what this setup looks like.
I also I kind of like the high countertop, but is it okay to sit on a stool or even something similar to what Anissa had without a back support?
Yeah, so I would strongly recommend that whatever you sit on for a prolonged period of time actually has a good lumbar support for you, right? Because otherwise the natural position for you would just be to slouch over. Whereas if you have a good lumbar support, you can actually sit back and sit more upright. It's a very natural human response.
We have another one from Bo. It says, what is a recommended maximum duration that we can remain standing while working?
So this one we receive a lot of questions on, and you know, we also have polled a lot of people as well as to what their experience is. I think that a lot of it actually goes down to your fitness level as an individual, right? If you are someone who is, you know, less fit, like, you know, standing for just like 20 minutes or 30 minutes may make you feel like tired. And in that case, you should definitely sit down until your endurance builds up. If you have someone who's quite fit, like standing for like 40, 50 minutes is not much of a problem. But I would say that for the average person, like when you stand, you probably should stand for about half an hour, 20 minutes or half an hour or so. And you should always make sure that when you're standing, you're not just standing still, but you're actually moving a bit, right? So, you know, you could be fidgeting and all that, which is a great thing about standing because you're able to fidget a lot more.
Thanks, Yuying. I think we have another five-ish minutes. So I'll wait for any other questions to come in. But about the standing concept, right? I know even in our office we had this chat, and I kind of fail to still understand and see if it does have any value. Is it more of a preference, or would you say that doing it at least for 20, 30 minutes throughout the day once is recommended?
You mean whether standing has any health benefits for people? Yes, I would say definitely so. I mean, one of the things about standing is that when you're standing, your posture is actually, you know, better as compared to sitting most of the time. So I don't know whether you caught the statistic inside there just now, but in one of my first few slides, you know, there was a stats which showed that when you're sitting, you actually place about 90% more pressure on your spine as opposed to standing. So if you think about like how humans have evolved, we have actually evolved from like hunter-gatherers into who we are today, right? So our very mode of being is that we're supposed to be in motion. We're supposed to be active. We didn't evolve to become creatures that just sit there and slouch there in front of a screen for like 8 to 10 hours a day. So I would say that, yes, I mean, in terms of health benefits, it's quite well documented that metabolic wise, it's much better for people. Your blood sugar levels go down when you stand, and when you're more active throughout the day. There is a certain amount of like calorie burn increase as well. So it is generally better for posture and in terms of your metabolic health if you are able to stand throughout your day.
And is it okay if I compensate standing for probably walking when I'm taking calls, or like when I'm in a meeting, just sort of walk during that?
Yeah, I mean, whether or not you stand, you should probably be walking or exercising.
Yeah.
Like standing doesn't replace that for sure.
Yeah,
right. So
to sort of type while I'm standing. It's just it's me. I just need to like sit and relax. But when I'm talking, I can probably just like walk around the living room, or even sometimes in the whole house. And I hope that compensates throughout the rest of the time.
I can imagine you walking around and like talking on your phone throughout the house. I think it's fine. Like, as long as you use these periods of activity to break up your day, as long as you're not sitting there staring at your screen or talking on your phone, like just sitting in one position for hours at a time, I think it's fine. So as long as you break up your sitting activity with like some sort of walking or standing activity, so that you're probably seated for no more than like half an hour or like 40 minutes at a time.
Thanks, Yuying. I think so. The key messages for me would be to keep it dynamic, to not be in one position for too long, and probably break it every 30 minutes, even in a small way, even if it would just or change the position, and in making sure that the screen is always at eye level, whether we're sitting or standing, and that the lower back is supported, especially all of the back. But even if you're doing some comfortable spots like the couch or the bed, the lower back is supported. The screen is at eye level. So at least the top three to bear in mind when we're trying to get our ergonomics right. I think, Yuying, it's been a pleasure having you and this very interesting chat and discussion, and there's so much that we've all learned, I'm sure. I will try to wrap up here. I don't see any other questions coming in either, and I hope everybody has enjoyed it as much. So thank you so much for guiding us with all the ergonomic design knowledge that you have, and I am sure everybody will really be happy with the discount code that you are offering, and we will be sharing that with everyone via email as well, and also on the article and along with the video recording. We will be sharing Yuying's slides as well in the video and the article that will follow this. Thank you everybody for joining. We do have another webinar with a KOL, which is the influencer tomorrow. He is from Altara Investments, and we're going to talk about startup exits and everything that surrounds this discussion, on whether to do it, when to do it, how to do it. We have the from Altara, and that's happening tomorrow at the same time. So make sure that you register for it. We will send up the registration link just after this. Besides that, obviously E27 is on Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, Instagram now. So make sure that you're following us one or the other, and feel free to participate in any of our chats there. Or for anything, just feel free to reach out to us at contact@e27.co. Thank you, everybody. I hope this year has been ending really well for all of you. And just as we get into the holiday season, and with all the discounts available this time, we can try to get our workplaces right and be ready for 2021, whether it is fully or partially remote. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll hope to see you at our webinars. Thank you, Yuying, and thank you, Esevel.
Thanks very much, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuying. Thanks, everyone.